Last year, a whopping $5.9 billion of crypto was stolen by hackers and scammers around the world. And that's just what's known about. The true figure is likely much higher. Being hacked is, of course, an absolute frickin' nightmare. So, if, God forbid, it should happen to you, what should you actually do? What steps can you take to improve your chances of maybe getting your funds back and perhaps bringing the thieving scumbag in question to justice? This video will take you through the process, looking at the steps industry experts advise victims to take. I'll talk about asset recovery companies, how you can make a hacker's life that little bit difficult, and a poorly understood side of crypto hacks, the mental health impact. There's a lot to pack in, so let's get straight to it. If you find that you've been hacked, it's important to stay calm, but act fast. First of all, notify the service provider, the wallet provider, crypto exchange platform, and so on. Next, advise law enforcement. Be clear in your messaging about what happened and provide as much detail as possible. But don't, for the love of all things holy, give them your seed phrase and/or recovery code. Now, breathe. You've taken the most important steps. If this has happened to you, you're probably high on adrenaline, not sure what to do, and with a flurry of emotions pumping through your system. Anger, disbelief, panic, rage. Now, why do I recommend notifying the service provider, the exchange or wallet, and law enforcement as the first steps? Well, this might be self-evident, but let me explain the rationale given to a colleague of mine by Taylor Monahan, head of product at MetaMask, a leading self-custodial wallet. Taylor, quote, urges users to reach out to MetaMask support ASAP if they think they've been hacked. They have seen it all, she says. She goes on to say, quote, there are cases where people think they've been hacked, but when we look at the details they've provided, it's thankfully not the case, and we can help them access their assets. But if a customer has been hacked, Taylor says MetaMask can often help them understand the type of attack, provide insight into how it happened, and what steps the user should take to be safe and prevent further loss. MetaMask, quote, can also provide resources to trustworthy third parties in the ecosystem who can help further and can flag any malicious URLs in their own block lists, which helps prevent the same malicious website or app from stealing from others. Now, although MetaMask is unusually well-resourced, any service provider worth its salt should be able to help you or at least provide you with useful information about your case. Okay, so you know you've been hacked and you've contacted the platform. What next? Yep, it's now time to contact law enforcement. Now, this is the advice of Aidan Larkin, the founder and CEO of Asset Reality, a company that specializes in dealing with government's seized assets, who also spoke to my colleague here at the Bureau. As Aidan explains it, law enforcement are the only people who actually have the authority to freeze or recover your assets, unless you can afford 50 to 100k to fund private litigation. Now, your case might also be part of a larger scam operation, and if so, there's a bigger chance of law enforcement taking it up. But it is important to be level-headed and not get your hopes up too much. The hard truth is that recovering money lost to crypto scams is extremely rare, even when law enforcement does take up a case. It's also important to keep the realities of the situation in mind. Police everywhere generally have an awful lot on their plate. They'll have to prioritize and allocate limited resources. Crypto scams are just a small part of a much bigger spectrum of fraud. And often, fraud is far down that list as it draws less attention than more dramatic crimes like violence. In the UK, for instance, it might shock you to learn that, quote, fraud now accounts for over 40% of crime, but receives less than 1% of police resources. Now, these are real figures from a UK government report published in May of this year. You can be sure that this picture is similar among other Western law enforcement agencies and likely is the case further afield as well. Anyhow, back to your case. By now, you've notified the service provider and the police. What next? Well, for one thing, it's important to stay level-headed. For a start, I don't advise taking to Twitter to tell people about what happened. But if you do, stay alert and be very wary of people and companies that say they can get your money back. Like hungry sharks, there are criminals lurking online. They can smell blood and are poised for attack. You know what? Let me show you an example. This person wrote on Twitter that their MetaMask and Solana wallets were compromised and that 16K was stolen. While the official Asset Reality Twitter account asked him to DM the details, other bogus accounts told the victim to contact them using email addresses that sounded like they were linked to Asset Reality, but in fact were not. It's easy to fall for one of these attacks at the best of times, to say nothing of a time when you're stressed, angry, and likely not thinking too clearly. You just can't be too careful. And this is also a good moment to remind you to be careful about accounts that look like, for instance, Coin Bureau, but aren't. If you see an account that looks like me but says Koyan Bureau or Coin Bureau or the like, ignore it. Or, better yet, block it. And remember, neither myself nor anyone else at Coin Bureau will ever contact you offering trading advice, crypto tips, or indeed anything else. So, if Guy from Caneborough slides into your DMs promising 100x returns, ignore, block, and report the little so-and-so ASAP. So, you now know what to be aware of and what not to do. Let's take a look at other potential steps you can take. So beyond your service provider and law enforcement, Asset Reality's Aidan recommends contacting regulated entities such as law firms or insolvency practitioners. In other words, entities that are licensed and subjected to regulatory oversight. Another option is possibly contacting asset recovery firms, but again, you have to keep your wits about you and understand that those companies still need a law firm, etc., to act on your behalf. If you've lost a password, for example, those companies may be able to assist, but rarely can they help in fraud cases. As well as the scam artists to be aware of, a lot of these firms tend to overpromise and underdeliver. A recent US-focused article by Forbes calls into question their value. The paper spoke with 11 clients of 5 such firms, including Cypherblade, CNC Intelligence, and Coin Dispute Network, who said that they either paid thousands of dollars or were asked to pay a similar amount and essentially got nothing for it. What a horrible feeling that must be, to lose tens or possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars of crypto and then pay thousands more for nothing. One former FBI special agent, now at CNC Intelligence, said that successes were so rare that he only knew of 10 successful cases, quote, out of a couple hundred. So, if you're willing to take those odds, you should think long and hard and determine whether the extra cost is actually worth it. Unless you've lost a lot of money, we're talking maybe 100k or more, it might not be worth it. Now, I want to take a moment to look at another less talked about side of the crypto scam story, mental health. According to MetaMask's Taylor, many people don't publicize the fact that they were hacked. They're embarrassed. They don't want their credibility undermined or to stand accused of messing up basic security procedures and becoming a victim of an avoidable scam. And don't even get me started on the topic of romance or pig butchering scams, where people are swindled out of money by someone they've grown to trust over time. Think the Tinder swindler, but with crypto instead of fiat. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, because there's a stigma around being hacked. It's seen as having been naive, having poor crypto OPSEC, not being tech-savvy enough, or just being a damn fool. But in reality, as Taylor says, anyone can be a victim of a scam. So, be kind, folks, because it might be you one day. Interestingly, Taylor also mentioned the experience of victims whose stolen assets remain clearly visible on-chain. There are cases where the attacker will move the money to one wallet, wait a month or so, then move it again. This can plague the mind of the victim, taking them on a torturous journey of hope, but also derailing their lives while they update all relevant parties every single time the money moves. And speaking of frustrating, the reality is that even if the service provider or law enforcement manages to freeze assets, recovery itself can be an arduous, bureaucratic nightmare that can take months and disrupt your life no end. Again, you'll need to assess whether it's all really worth it. So, there you have it, folks. Now, I wish the reality around asset recovery was a bit more optimistic, but I'm not here to sugarcoat things for you. As ever, prevention is the best form of defense. Now, I've said it a million times, but I'll say it a million more. Use a cold wallet. Keep your keys safe. Use two-factor authentication whenever you can, and be very careful before opening URLs. And stay sharp. The vast majority of scams can be avoided by due diligence and looking out for the telltale signs. If you want to learn more, I recommend checking out our videos on keeping good crypto hygiene. I'll link to those below. And if you still haven't got yourself a hardware wallet, our deals page has links where you can get discounts on some of the very best ones on the market. That link is in the description below. And have you been victim of a scam? What happened? Did you recover your assets? Did you tell anyone about it? As ever, drop your comments below. Who knows, your experience may help prevent someone else from going through the same thing. Okay, that's about it from me. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, remain vigilant, and be sure to drop by again soon. Until then, cheerio.